Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of See Yourself Grow with Tina. I am Tina Kalura, and for those of you who don't know me, I am the founder and CEO of the See Yourself and Your Business Grow coaching and consulting firm. And I help people get out of their own way and into results in less than 90 days. I am a wife, I am a mom, and I try to be a boss at everything that I do. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's okay because I continue to try. I'm all about failing forward. So, as coaches, as consultants, as business owners, have you noticed a shift in your values in your business or in your clients' values and or business? So most business owners focus on what they can do for their clients. What is their value proposition? How to help them map out their business goals, timelines, financials, all of that fun stuff. These are all centered around competencies, skills, maybe degrees, books they've read, courses that they've taken, masterminds that they've attended, and so on. And all these things define and speak for people's skill level. However, they do not give very much insight to who they are as human beings. So these underlying qualities are our core values, many of which are arguably just as important, if not more important, than the core competencies, because they are the fundamental habits, the traits, the personal quirks, the soft skills that we bring to every engagement. Now, if that makes sense for you, I want you to put absolutely in the chat or yes, yes, yes. And if you're listening live, just give us a quick hello. If you're listening on the replay, just type hashtag replay. But my goal when I work with my clients is to partner with them to design the right solutions for them, not to implement some kind of framework that's going to make me famous one day. But my core values are deeply ingrained in the principles that guide my company. And they are to create opportunities whereby I can collaborate with my clients to help them achieve their desired goals. My goal, my core value is always to motivate and guide my clients to exceed their own expectations. And we should always aim to be innovative thinkers, have an innovative mindset where we're constantly learning and growing and figuring out new ways to be better people, business owners, and clients ourselves. So this is why I do what I do. I've created the See Your Network Grow monthly virtual event to bring together like-minded people so that we can elevate each other, mind, body, and soul. It's not about selling. It's about creating a community where we can collaborate, share what's working, what's not working, what we can do better. So for the month of April, that is going to be happening on April 25th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll put the link in the comments, both on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and then I'll also share it on YouTube as well. And this week, I actually started for the first time. I'm running a 5-day challenge on how to generate 50 leads in 5 days. So right now I have 8 people in this group, and the feedback I'm getting is blowing my mind. So I'm enjoying it just as much as they are, which is absolutely amazing. So now, of course, I'm going to run it one more time for the low price of $47, and that is going to start the week of April 29th. After that, I'm going to be selling it for $197 as an online course. So I'm pulling back the curtains on how I use social media to acquire leads, how I get 5 to 10 booked calls after every networking event, and how I use live interviews to draw people in, and how I plan, promote, and deliver online courses that help build the know, like, and trust factor. So whether you're just starting out or you're looking to revitalize your lead generation strategy, this challenge is for you. If you want to accelerate your business growth strategies, book time with me. If you want to focus on efficient lead acquisition strategies, you can also book time with me. And if you want to hear about proven, actionable insights that drive real world results, book time with me. So having a well-defined values that run through all you do helps your clients recognize what your organization stands for and what they can expect from working with you and or investing in your products or services. So here to talk to us more about shifts in value is Trish Murray. So in 2012, Trish took herself on an eat, pray, love journey to find her way back to the soul of business. Using a curated selection of process, principles, and practices, Trish guides intuitive, soulful entrepreneurs amplify their CEO soul vision using their soul and business compass. She has a degree, she has degree studies in business, marketing, psychology, and specialized training in yoga therapy, spiritual law, human design, and astrology. She is a consultant. She is a teacher. She's a podcast ghost. That was host and guest. I merged those two together. She's not a ghost. I promise. She's real. And supports future focused communities, cast a vision for business in this new age of Aquarius. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Trish, the real person, not the ghost.
I am still gonna laugh at that though, because if you are following my podcast, you might think that I am ghosting you.
No.
It's been a while since I released something new, so there we go.
Oh gosh, okay. Well, you know what? So you saw what I did there, right? I merged the word host and guest and
Love
team
it.
of ghosts. Anyway,
Super good.
Trish, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good,
Oh,
excellent. I'm
good.
so thankful and grateful that you're here with us today.
Oh, thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So, Trish, can you tell us, based on your experience, tell us more about how you help your clients amplify their CEO soul vision?
Oh, yeah. This is one of my favorite conversations to have, other than the one that we're about to have about the value shift, is, because it really has come out of, that eat, pray, love journey that you were kind of unpacking from my bio. We all have sort of this vision. We all come through business. We've all been taught how to do the visioning and the missioning and, the values and all of the exercises. And, what I really started to notice with a lot of my clients was that there was a disconnect still. There was still kind of a disconnect between what they had on paper and how that was actually influencing and finding its way into the day-to-day actions that they were taking, like their daily doing list. And, without getting into the whole backstory, that was what brought me into human design. And that was what brought me into really looking at astrology in a very different way. It's very unconventional, I think, right now to bring those things into business. But that is where I start with people. They've already got their vision. It's not about rewriting it. It's about sharpening it and refining it based on what comes forward when we start looking at your human design, when we start looking at what's really, there's three places that I will often look, your North Node in astrology, Neptune in astrology, and then something called your incarnation cross in human design. There's so much rich, beautiful, soulful insight that comes through those three places that it changes the essence of our vision. And it for a lot of my clients, it really has been the thing that's kind of back to, again, my bio. It's helped them really recapture the soul of why they are doing what they're doing. It goes deeper. It goes so much deeper than, the mission statement or the, whatever we've been conventionally taught. And yes, it is kind of unconventional to start looking there.
But you know what? We all start a business for a reason.
Yes.
And it's that reason that sometimes gets lost, right?
Yes.
It gets lost, Trish, in everything that we're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Build the business, build the marketing plan, build the strategy, be there for our client. Like there's just so many different hats that we wear that sometimes we forget. Why we initially went into business or why we started the business or, what rattled our cage so much that we said there needs to be some kind of change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of that, what rattled our cage in terms of, somewhere along our journey, we bump up against something And it's a wrestling match. And we'll talk a little bit about this because I think this is going to come up. This is coming up as I'm watching this values shift unfold. But it really becomes about really getting in touch with what is our unwavering truth? What is the thing that we believe at the very core of our being? And sometimes we don't even really know what that is. And yeah, so I've just found those tools really helpful in being able to help people reconnect or connect in a different way, in a deeper
Mhm.
way.
Nice,
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, I'm all for it. I love what you do. I recently had my human design
Yeah.
chart read,
Yeah.
and it was pretty cool. I mean, things
Yeah.
things I already knew, but it just took me to a different knowledge level of where I am and where I need to be and what I need to focus on. And the whole intuition thing. I'm like, ooh, I'm like, I always thought I had some of that.
Yeah.
But now I know, right?
Yeah.
So very
Yeah.
cool. So Trish, in one of our offline conversations, you had mentioned that value shift, the value shift. Can you share a little bit more about what that's all about?
Yeah, well, so I'm gonna get to the punchline because I want to really honor people's time, and we'll come back on these. Let's look at three things about this value shift, and so I'm gonna go on to those three things, get to the punchline, and then we can come back on them for people who want to stick around or watch the whole thing. So number one, this value shift is happening on an individual level, and it's impacting what we're seeing in the collective, in the overarching collective sense, this macro sense of 8 billion people walking around on the planet. But this value shift is taking place at a very individual level, and I think that we can look back to what happened in 2008 after the US housing market went through a massive recalibration.
Hmm.
And if you're not familiar with that, if maybe you're one of the youngers and you don't really know about that, you can go and watch the movie The Big Short. It talks about what actually happened there.
Hmm.
But there's also, this was one of the books that I found, and I'll try and get there. It's called Spend Shift. What a horrible cover, like in terms of the language. You can't even see the title of it. Anyways, Spend Shift. It does a brilliant job of going into some really interesting research about what transpired after 2008. What did consumers do? What did we do? And I did a podcast when I wasn't ghosting. I did a podcast, and it's called Three Keys from Spenshift, and it breaks down sort of the three key things that I took away from that book that I found really helpful, like just so very helpful in terms of navigating my own values shift, right? And that really started in 2012 when I went out on that Eat, Pray, Love journey. So it's happening on an individual level, but it's going to impact what's happening on the collective front. Okay. A lot of people might say, geez, I'd really like a roadmap. I'd really like a roadmap for how to navigate this value shift that's going on. And we'll get talking about what that might look like. But here's where I'm going to send people. The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. The hero's journey, we are all somewhere on that journey right now. And I think that humanity on a whole is on that journey right now in terms of really grappling with and wrestling with what is truly valuable. What is truly valuable to me? What's truly valuable to my community? And what is truly of value to humanity going forward? Number three, I think that this is going to really become more about how can we increase our level of readiness in the midst of these shifts, because the shifts are taking place, um, whether we want them to or not.
Yep.
Um, and it's more about how can we find our way through to a greater degree of readiness and be more responsive as opposed to reacting to whatever we feel is shifting. And so I'm going to share some resources if at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So those are the three things. It's happening on an individual level. impacting the collective. The roadmap that I would encourage people to go and really, spend some time with is the hero's journey.
Okay.
And and understanding that the ultimate end game in this is increasing our own level of readiness to be responsive versus reactive. And so, just for fun, I went on and had a look at what was going on in the human design chart today. And there was a particular piece of the chart got activated today. It's called a channel, and it's the 5720 channel. And I think of this channel as intuitive insight. So, before I got on here, I wanted to go back and think of what was the one piece of intuitive insight that I would look back on now over the last 12 years of all the stuff that I've received that would be most relevant for right now. And here's what it was. Ready?
Yep.
Personal revolutions create the collective's evolution.
Hmm.
Personal revolutions create the collective's evolution. And so if you're able to bring yourself up to 50,000 feet, sort of, looking at this from a bird's eye perspective, this shift, all of the things that are going on in our world, whether we're declaring them to be positive or negative, it's a part of the collective's evolution. It's a part of humanity moving forward into a completely different way of being. And that's happening on such a very personal, individual level. And it probably for some people is starting to feel like they're going through a bit of a revolution, right? Maybe they're feeling, you know, like everything's imploding or exploding, or maybe they're feeling like everything's changing all at one time and they don't know how to keep up with that. And so that's where I think the roadmap is really helpful. It gives you a sense of, okay, well, where am I right now?
Right.
And what's coming next, and how do I prepare myself for that? So
Yeah.
pause there for a minute.
Yeah. And that is so important, Trish. We don't take enough time to look inward, right?
Mm,
Because we're so distracted with everything else that's going on in our world, whether that's social media, busy with the kids, busy with the business, what have you. I think a lot of people struggle with being silent with themselves and doing that inner work, um, to prepare themselves, or even to acknowledge,
yeah,
what am I thinking? What am I feeling?
yeah.
What could I be doing differently? I don't think enough people take the time to do that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know I didn't. Up until
Yeah.
2012, I was on the hamster wheel. I was right? I was
Yeah.
just heads down, get it done, right? And that was definitely part of my values shift. When I say it's happening on an individual level, we're all at different, phases in this, but we'll cycle back through it and come full circle again. But I think that was a really big part of mine when I had that sort of moment. And I'm going to say, for me, what really galvanized this for me was really tuning in, back to your idea of getting silent and tuning in. But I just started to listen, and I started to hear myself saying, I am so done with this.
Mm,
I am so done with this. And, it took me years to be able to go back into that idea, that feeling, that conversation, that me, myself, and I conversation, and realize that, yeah, actually, I was done with it. And it was a signal, kind of like a message, kind of broadcasting at that soul level of, girl, you're done with this. It's time to
oh
move.
God,
It's time
yeah.
to move yourself out of this 6 days a week business, out of this 12 hours a day, out of this idea that you've constructed this life of work. Like it's just nothing but work. And it was a process moving out of that. But
Oh
I
yeah.
do agree that there was a moment in time and for me, it was a change in leadership that really brought about, sort of that awakening, if you will. I really started to, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? Whoa, what's this? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was an external shift that caused my own internal one. But for a lot of other people, it could just be that natural process of, they're just feeling discontent. They're feeling, disappointed. with
Yep.
things, and
Yep.
it just isn't going away. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And, you can only ignore it for so long. And I've heard it said, it comes as a whisper, but eventually, if, those feelings and those thoughts are not addressed,
yeah,
something or someone's going to be yelling at you, and it's your inner voice
it is.
basically, you know screaming for help, because there's so many things that are not in alignment.
Yeah.
And eventually, that's where these breakdowns happen, right? And so we got to acknowledge that before we get to that point. I think is important.
If you can, if you know, and but I'm gonna be completely honest with you right now, it's really hard to do that. And, I came out of the marketing industry, and I am I have a very low level of respect for the industry of marketing now, because of the rabbit holes that I've taken myself down in the last 12 years
Mm,
to really understand. It's not been as favorable towards us as we might think, right? I think that between the media, the marketing, and the messaging, it's keeping us in this state of mental chaos, or
mm,
it's trying to,
yeah.
and to be able to break out of that, to be able to get yourself out of that rip current, it takes a lot of fortitude. It takes and intentionality.
Yeah, intentionality, that's huge. Because again, we need to be more strategically intentional with, where we're spending our time, who we're spending our time with, what we are spending our time on,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
think that's huge.
Yeah.
Now, Trish, you touched on a few things like the hero's journey, but are there any other things that business owners can do to align or realign themselves as they see this shift emerging in the world or within their own personal world?
Yeah, well, so like I said, I think started with the punchline. I think that there's a lot for us to gain by going back and looking at some of the insights, some of the commentary around the 2008 housing crisis and what consumers did after that.
Mm,
Really understanding, because I think that that is almost a prototype for what happened in 2020 and the world that we're moving ourselves through right now. It's just amplified about 100 times compared to, where we were in 2008. So that would be the one thing that I would go and look for is, what resources are out there, who was talking about what, and what really did come down. And so that's why I wanted to bring that book forward, Spend Shift. I found it really helpful. And if I can, I'm going to go back to one particular insight that they brought forward
mhm.
um, in a moment. So here are some other thoughts for business owners. And I work with business owners, and this and it's something that they hear from me all the time, even when they don't like it. Um, it starts within.
Yeah.
It starts within. And I mean that both in an individual sense, because the shifts are happening on an individual level, but I also mean like from within our business, right? We've been trained and taught to spend more of our time looking out there as opposed to looking within. And this comes back to what you were saying, Tina, about how we haven't really been shown or encouraged to be more reflective and to go within and look at what's going on. Um, but I think that that was a big part of it for me. I got quiet for a while.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I still go through periods of quietness because that there is so much noise out there. There's so much mm, chaos in the world. It's really easy to get distracted by all of that and not bring ourselves back into, our own path, our own soul's journey, and our own business, and how our business intersects with that particular journey.
Yeah.
So that would be
Very
one
true.
other thing. And then I think that the last thought that was in my mind anyways was really, mm, really, I think getting unconventional, right? And I mean unconventional. I mean like diverging from this mainstream conversation, even around business, around what we hear all the time around business, and starting to look at sort of a lot more unconventional ideas and thought starters. And, one of the things that I might invite people to consider is we've grown up in a business community or a culture that has been predicated on, I think that's the right word, that has been based on competition, conflict, and scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of the value shift is really pressing us to consider, is that really the way things are in the natural sense, or is that manufactured?
Right? I agree. I
Mhm.
agree because we act as we're a product of our environment, right?
Yeah.
So if we are raised in that competitive business cutthroat zone, then that is how we are going to behave.
Yeah.
And for the folks that struggle with, falling in line
Yeah.
with that way of thinking, those are the renegades, right? Those I'm a renegade.
Yes.
Trish, I know you are too, right? We don't easily fall in
Yeah.
line with what is expected.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with our values, right? What we value as humans, what has been instilled in us. It's like,
Yeah.
this doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
right? And so we're usually left out of that, militant way of thinking, because we just don't fit into that box.
Yeah. And
And
here's
that's
my
okay, right?
my opinion is none of us are designed to fit into the box. And I will say that I think of us as outlaws,
Yeah,
outlaws and mavericks, and kind of the sure, shit disturbers, I guess, a little bit,
a little bit.
um, but and I kind of always have been that, but I think it really came to the forefront in 2012, and I didn't have the language for it, and that, for me, is what human design, did. I think we go through this process, and human design talks about this. We go through this process of sort of unconditioning or deconditioning, letting go of what we believe we are, and leaning into, oh, this, I've never seen myself like that. And I think that the more we can see ourselves as outlaws and mavericks and renegades, or what was the word that you used?
Renegade?
Yeah.
What?
How did
Yeah.
you define yourself?
Oh, I define myself as a renegade.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more we can start to consider just the pure possibility that every human on the planet is meant to be that in their own unique, individual, glorious way, I think there's a lot of freedom that
Yeah.
comes through that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there something you're seeing or sensing? I think you touched upon this a little bit.
Yeah.
What's different from now, um, than what it was in 2008? I know for me in 2008, that's when I bought my first property, Trish.
Wow. Yeah.
And my views back then was everything's on sale. Right?
I think a lot of people saw it that way.
Yeah, right?
Mhm.
And it's all about perspective, right?
Yeah.
And where you are at that time of your
Yeah.
life.
Mhm.
Because, where I am now is very different than where I was in 2008, right?
Yeah.
It was just me and my husband starting, our investment journey. But now we have 2 kids and 3 dogs and,
Yeah.
a house and a mortgage and all that fun stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, again, it's all about perspective and where you put your attention and whether that is positive and or negative. I truly believe that it's just important to be honest and like you said, do the inward look,
Mhm.
on, what you need to shift,
Yeah.
and what your family needs to shift on, and do it together. I think, you don't have to do it alone, I think is
No,
is
exactly.
another valuable point to make, right?
So that's so in terms of what am I seeing, and this goes back to like a lot of the resources that I've looked at over the last 12 years to come and shape my point of view around this. I am ridiculously optimistic about what sits on the other side of this value shift, but I'm also deeply deeply respectful that the hero's journey is not always a pleasant experience for people. But so one of the resources that I went back and looked at was a book called The Human Brand. And he
Mm,
talks, Chris Malone and Susan Fisk are the authors of that. And they talk about this relationship renaissance. And they talk about how business as we understand it, modern business, what it looks like today compared to what it looked like before the Industrial Revolution. And they are, and I absolutely believe this with all my heart, because you just talked about your see your network grow experience. You talked about community, you talked about collaboration, you talked about the sense of togetherness, right? Building relationships. And they're in their book, they do talk about the fact that they believe without a doubt that we're going to see a relationship renaissance. And
mm,
if you start to kind of consider back to what can business owners do to be able to navigate through this, if it, and it this could be a complete paradigm shift for some, because it's not the way that a lot of business has been done. It's certainly not the way a lot of business is taught right now. But going back into this idea, if you put relationship at the very center of everything that you're doing, your community, your village, if you will, if you put that at the very center of everything else that you're doing, it changes the entire dynamic of what you're doing, where you're spending your time, your money, your energy. It changes probably a little bit your vision about what it is that you're wanting to bring out into the world. Um, and so I think that was one of the things that I've started to really notice taking a hold. I'm hearing more and more people talking about community and collaboration and real connection. So that's awesome.
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, like my networking, I just wanted to build a community where people could feel safe to share and collaborate and potentially meet their
Yeah.
next client or
Yeah.
business partner or best friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just so important, and it's something that entrepreneurs miss out on, right? As we get into business,
Oh,
we're missing, that connection, that human connection.
so
So I
true.
think it's important to create space for that as well.
Yeah. And even more so in the last 3 or 4 years, we went into this, working from home thing, which is beautiful for a lot of people, but it also has taken that social connection piece out. Think about what happened with the lockdowns. People got pulled out of their communities, and those
Mhm.
relationships got severed, right? And I think that we're starting to hear now that that has had a tremendous impact on our mental health
Yeah.
of what happened when we were kept apart from the people that we loved. And so, yeah, I think that there is a lot of healing that needs to happen coming out of the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of healing, um, back into this hero's journey a little bit, and then finding our way of harmonizing with a more natural, soulful way of being in our world. So I know I want to be mindful of time. So here are the resources, if I could.
Yeah.
There are a handful of things that Spend Shift was one of them. I've already talked
Yep.
about. The Human Brand I just mentioned. I think that's a really interesting read for business owners, um, to be able to consider. Again, this is about pure possibility. Because if you look at the world outside right now, you're like, there's no possibility. It's just all doom and gloom. And the world is like, I mean, people are literally saying that we're on the verge of World War III right now.
Mm.
And I'm going to suggest that there is a lot of stuff going on out there that is crazy making, and it's really disruptive and disturbing to see happening. But on the other side of this, we are the ones that will bring forward something new. Personal revolutions create the collective's evolution. So the evolution that we want to create, I think, starts with us, right? That's what Gandhi would have said.
Yep.
Big Magic was another book. Elizabeth Gilbert, she's the one that
Mm.
wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Yep.
Big Magic, and her whole premise is opening up to the pure possibility of living creatively, creative living beyond fear, creative
Mm.
living beyond fear. It was a game-changing book for me because of where I was at the time. And I think the other resource that I would go and maybe suggest is I found a fellow by the name of Greg Braden in 2013, and he was talking about absolutely, well, ridiculous ideas as I was coming out of the corporate world, and I was like, "What is he? Wait a minute, that actually makes sense." So he's got a lot of videos on YouTube. I would go back to his older stuff, the stuff that he's released, in the like back in around 2010, 2014, that kind of range there. He's got lots of good stuff there.
Okay, so we're gonna have to put all of this in the comments,
Sure.
Trish. Yeah, just I didn't capture the last gentleman's name, but yeah, if you, even if you just send it to me and then I'll put it in the
I
comments. Both,
absolutely will. You bet.
yeah, that'll be so cool. Okay, so Trish, is there anything going on in your world that you would like to promote, or anything that we could help you with?
Well, it really comes down to if you are feeling that sense of, I don't feel like my business is a reflection of that meaning and purpose, that soulful part of who I am, then I think that's worthy of a conversation. I take people through something called an immersion process. It's a one-to-one consulting experience, and we look at your soul and business compass, which is layers of your human design, astrology, numerology, and something called the Success Codex. And we look at what's in that and how can we infuse that into the pieces that you're already working with, right? When it comes to your vision, your core value, your community, your village, and your communications, how you're expressing yourself in your voice. So I think that that's a really compelling piece for people, especially if you're feeling like, I haven't heard anybody speak about business from a soulful perspective, or I don't feel like I get to be my soulful, true, authentic self in my business. I feel like I'm two people.
Yeah.
I think that's a really compelling, and it's exciting. I love doing them with people because you just see them take ownership of their business in a totally different way.
Nice. Excellent. Okay. And so what is the best way for people to get in touch with you, Trish?
Well, I have a website. It's www.soulstyle.me, soulstyle.me. And all of my links are there, but you can find me on LinkedIn, and there'll probably be a link below in the comments about that. And I am probably more active on Instagram. I've got a closed community on Instagram, so it's a request to gain, but there's no fee or anything to get in there. It's just how I manage bots and trolls and and
Mm-hmm.
nefarious people. I just want to make sure I'm talking to real people.
Ah, nice. Excellent. All right. So Trish, thank you so much for this time, for your thoughts, for your soulfulness. I love it. And I'm truly grateful for all that you do. I know you do wonderful work. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tina. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. It was wonderful having this conversation with you.
Yes, I love it. All right. So Trish, feel free to hang back. I'm just going to wrap things up. And if you have to go, I totally get it. I want to be respectful of your time as well. So thank you again. All right, so there you have it, everyone. Trish Murray, please take advantage of all that she has to offer. She does wonderful work. She is so insightful, and she's so knowledgeable in the area of getting in tune with who you are and your business, getting back into alignment with who you really are. So I'll be putting all of her contact information on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And yeah, so, and I'll be putting my links in there as well. So again, if you want to see your network grow, that's happening April 25th. If you want to see your leads grow, that's happening April 29. And as always, I love interviewing other coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. I am booked for the month of April and May. I'm now booking for June. So if you want over 5,000 pairs of eyes and ears on you, feel free to private message me and we could set something up there as well. All right, everyone. I look forward to seeing you and your business grow. Enjoy the rest of your day and take care.